I'm sure you guys have probably spent the last couple of days dealing with all kinds of cool technology, some crazy things that you're like going, man, I don't know how I can do that. And some things you're like going, yeah, I get it. Come on, move on to the next cool thing. So what I'm hoping I can do with this presentation is get you guys something kind of in the middle there, something that's not so technical that I'll never understand this or do this, but it's also not the most entry-level things. But if there's any kind of questions and such, we'll try to have some time at the end. If it's something that really doesn't make sense and kind of like speaking a different language and maybe just wave your hands and I'll try to slow down and talk a little better. So PowerShell and Puppet. What we're going to try to accomplish today is why use Puppet Enterprise APIs. And it's one of those things that the APIs for with Puppet makes it a lot easier to do some of the administration. If you look at what you do all the time, you're using Puppet to make it easier to manage servers. And Puppet is great. Puppet can do all kinds of cool things, but I'm so lazy, I want to manage my Puppet with code also. So I'm trying to find a way of not having to go through, do the same things over and over again, or say if I put a new Puppet Enterprise server up for testing, I don't want to have to configure that thing manually. And then I want to show some of the advantages of using PowerShell with the Puppet APIs. And the reason for that is I'm a really big fan of PowerShell, a huge fan of PowerShell. And really, I'll kind of go into this a little bit more, but hopefully by at least the middle of this, you can say, hey, I understand this, and if I'm not using PowerShell now, maybe I'll give it a shot. And if we have time, we can talk about how to improve your SR ranking in Overwatch, because it's really important to get out of that silver and gold level, because if you don't get out of there, you get stuck with bad teammates. My daughter can talk to you all about it later. Quick word of thanks. I want to thank Jeremy Adams and Lizzie Libdown, I believe. They had a presentation in PuppetConf 2015, Puppet API Roundup. It was great. Appreciate it. It was one of those presentations I looked at this and go, wow, I didn't know I could do this. I didn't know I could take some of these shortcuts. I didn't know this was available, or I knew about it, but I didn't quite understand it. And so I looked at it and said, this is really cool. I need to find a way of getting curl approved to be installed on my Windows machine at work, and then go ahead and write some scripts around that and work some processing. And then I was like, well, PowerShell can do some of this stuff. So I looked at there. And I also want to thank Matt. Matt's easily the best technical solutions engineer I've ever worked with. Easily the best, but he's helped me a lot, so I may be a little biased there. So I just want to say thanks again. Once again, why use this? It's consistent. We're all humans, we all make mistakes. We have people who do things for us, and it's really hard to do something the right way over and over again. You guys are all at PuppetConf, you know that. That's why we're here, because I'm a nice person. I try to do my job really well. I try to keep my boss, who happens to be here, happy all the time. But he can tell you, I'm not perfect, so I'm going to write this stuff down in code. Save the clicks. I don't want to spend all day just clicking around, looking for things in the GUI and saying, oh, there's this here, and I got to click here. Let's just get rid of that. If we're going to be doing all this stuff with code on our servers, let's do this also with Puppet. And of course, I am lazy. I am super lazy. I don't want to have to do the same thing over and over again. I don't want to have to sit there and move this mouse, click it, and go, oh, I got to click this apply button too. Oh, I got to click this other thing. So what you really want to do is you want to make it easy. I really want to talk about some endpoints here, and this is not a full list. And of course, in classic Puppet fashion, yesterday they added more things too. So whatever happens with Puppet API stuff, there's always going to be more APIs to learn. But this is just kind of a quick overview of some of the really important ones that I found in getting this presentation together. But once we go through this, you can probably go and look at the API list and find some other things you need to work. So the status API, basically what's the status API do? You okay? Is Puppet working? Is everything okay? Is a classifier going? Is PuppetDB going? It's important that you have that, because you don't have to sit around all the time wondering, hey, is this stuff working? Hang on, I gotta log into PE, I gotta open up the little thing here, check the health monitor. Okay, it's green, there's not a problem here. Or when somebody does something wrong and maybe part of your ServiceNow installation, not that ServiceNow's bad, ServiceNow's great, but if there's a code problem somewhere else down the line, you'll get those calls where people say, hey, is Puppet broken? I'm having this problem, help me fix this, what's the matter? And I can go in and say, no, Puppet's not broken, it's working just fine. Role-based access control. It's really annoying to have to sit there and deal with people, saying, oh, well, I need this access here, I need this access here, this access. So really, you want to be able to take the role-based access control, and modify that and script it. That way you can also build new servers. You can say, hey, I want to do this part. And for us, we had an issue with the LDAP parser. We have a huge AD tree. Huge. It's the biggest. No, not really the biggest, but it's a huge AD tree. And the problem that we had was whenever you'd go and search for somebody, you would actually try to find multiple copies of that. And there's a little thing that explains how to go ahead and not have that problem, but you have to really go to the API to fix it. And that was my first really big push in the API. And that sped up our login times from, it was like maybe 8 or 9 seconds. It wasn't like a really horrible thing, but my boss is like going, well, you said Puppet was fast and it works really well. What's the matter here? And like, And once we fixed it, it's like, a half second. So it works great. Orchestration. Once we get stuff going, we don't want to have to sit around and do a bunch of other calls to it. We like the GUI, we really do like the GUI, but if you work in a big organization, you probably have other things calling other things to do other things and all the other stuff. So really, you don't want to have someone to go in there and say, oh, let's fire this Puppet job off and run over here and log in, move the mouse, click, and create the report. Okay. And we click over here and do something else. So this is a way of firing off those jobs, forcing a Puppet run and making things work. And then PuppetDB. PuppetDB is great. PuppetDB has all the information in the world. And sometimes it's hard to get the information out because you're going, hey, there's so many things I want to see. There's catalogs, the history of that. You have the software now that you want to see. And while it's great that they're getting it, it can be a little bit tough to get all the details out you want. So sometimes you spend time going, okay, well, this is here. It's in there somewhere, but I don't quite know. And if you have to do a curl command for that, you have to go out and build this nice query. You run it and say, well, that's sort of it. And then you go ahead and run it again. You wait, that's sort of it too. And you kind of do that. We'll kind of go over that a little bit later. And then finally, the node classifier. Node classifier is great. There's so many things you can do with it. I really want to do more with node classifier. And the people at Walmart have really impressed me with what they're doing. I'm like, oh, that looks really cool. So we're going to do some more stuff with it. I don't have that many examples with it, but really the node classifier API is just one of the best, coolest things. So why use PowerShell? Everyone has their favorite tools. Everyone has something they like to use all the time. And if they're a really big computer nerd, like maybe somebody here or over here is, you always try to get people on the same thing. You say, hey, this is really good. I really think you should take a look at it. To a point where you're like, oh, yeah, I know. No, come on, really, you should see this, And sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not. But I'm really partial to Puppet and PowerShell. So the first reason that PowerShell is awesome is everything is an object. And objects are one of those things. When I first did computer programming classes, back in the Stone Ages, we're sitting there with tablets and everything. Understanding objects was really difficult for me. I was like going, it's just some text and some other stuff here. But once you start working with objects in PowerShell, especially if you don't have a long history with Bash, like somebody who kind of learned Linux because they had to and didn't really do much with it at first, I looked at Bash, you go, this is really powerful. Everything's a string. You can do all this stuff with strings. But the problem with strings, of course, is they're strings. So you've got to go ahead and say, hey, I've got this big old text of strings. Let's go put this out into Python. Let's go do some Perl stuff with it. Let's go ahead and parse it the way I want to do it. And that's great when you need it, but sometimes it's nice just to work with the objects and play around with them. We'll kind of show you some of that in a second. Microsoft backing. So the big thing that I love about Microsoft in the past few years is they have really started to do the right things and some really nice things. Microsoft is sitting there saying, hey, look, we want to get people off of RDP into the servers. We want to get people off of doing things through the GUI. Let's go ahead and let's make this something that you can go through. And it's all PowerShell with WinRM. WinRM is just great. And it's just neat things that they can do. So with Microsoft behind this, it isn't something that, oh yeah, PowerShell's deprecated, so it'll be gone in 2 years, blah, it's gone. Open source, I don't know if you guys know this, but PowerShell 6 is now open source. So they're doing a little bit of change in the future where you have PowerShell that not only runs on Windows, but it also runs on Mac and it also runs on Linux. And I really want to put it on Linux, but and I do put it on Linux sometimes as long as they don't catch me, because Linux guys get so mad. They're going, why don't you want Bash? Bash is the best thing possible. And, well, yeah, Bash is great. Bash is wonderful, but it's kind of fun. This is really fun. Another thing I love about PowerShell is command discovery. So everything is a verb and a noun. it just makes sense. So you're sitting there going, okay, what do I want to look at? I want to look at a process. Well, what do I want to do with the process? Well, I want to get the process. Oh, so get dash process. Hey, there you go, really kind of neat. When I started looking at REST stuff, all I had to do is run a git command, asterisk, REST, asterisk, and boom, it's looking there. And it's found it for me. I can say, okay, here's the command. I can open the help up. I can see examples. I don't have to sit there and find the documentation. I can kind of root around a little bit and point my fingers and try to figure out where everything's at. And then, of course, I'm still looking for a good git command bourbons, for something to get some bourbon out there. Being from Kentucky, I have to say bourbon's a great drink. There's lots of nice, small, handcrafted things, and bourbon council, I guess. The other thing, too, is with PowerShell, you have training. And what's nice about that training is it's training that your operations people will want to have. You have people who are lower level technical, just getting started in the business. It's a lot easier for them to learn PowerShell because it's probably sitting at home on their desktop. They don't have to open up a VM. They don't have to create a VM with CentOS. They don't have to do anything else. They can just open up their desktop and say, hey, I want to figure out how some of this stuff works and do some examples. The dev tools, Visual Studio Code is cool. It's really cool. It's really fun. Everyone's like saying this is the new hotness. Trust me, it is. Some of my demos are, oops, I've got an update thing this always happens to me. There we go. Some of my demos are using the ISE because the ISE is a little bit easier to see, but in development, Visual Studio Code is awesome, especially not just for PowerShell, but it's great for Puppet now too. So definitely take a look at it. And can be used by mortals. So you can build something in a PowerShell, a really simple script, and you can then just give that script to your boss. I'm lucky to have a really brilliant boss who happens to be here. He's just a really great guy. He can do everything better than I can. But some people may not have that. And if you don't have that, you can go ahead and write a script and they can get those reports for you. Okay, so one thing that people always like to say, at least some people I've talked to, are like going, well, this is great, but I really can still do all these things in curl. All this REST API stuff, all these things using simple HTTP calls, I can do it in curl. And you really can. And some people also think that, is curl in PowerShell? Well, yes, sort of. So if you run a curl with the URI and put in things here for getting a services endpoint, you get this back, which looks kind of cool because it's JSON and it's what you're kind of expecting. But if you run the same thing with invoke web request, it's, as you see, it's the same thing, just cropped a little differently. And the reason for that is curl inside of PowerShell is just aliased out to invoke web request. There's been lots of pros and cons and good things and bad things about that. But the thing you want to make sure you don't do is take a curl example and run it in PowerShell unless you've pathed out something for a true binary of curl, because it can be really nasty. But just be careful with that. I know some people will look at this and say, hey, this is great, I've got this example, but it kind of blows up in their face. Okay, the PE client tools, anybody use those? Have they installed them or get them working? I love them. They work great. They're really cool. They're really fun for when you do one or two quick things. And this is not meant to step on them at all or say they're not good. They're great. But sometimes you want to do a little bit of automation where you're going to grab some data, massage it, do something else with it. Or you want to build a report, or you want to do some other parts with it. So definitely use the client tools. Definitely do some things with it. But the client tools probably aren't going to be installed on your boss's workstation, or the people in operations may not have it installed. But if they have Windows, which most people in a big organization will have Windows, they probably have PowerShell installed. And if they have PowerShell, you can just, in an email, send them this text and say, hey, grab this, copy and paste this over, run it, boom, you got some results. And the thing I love about PowerShell is if I don't know what I really want to do, this is what's so powerful about it. I can pull down this big old glob of information and say, okay, well, I need something. I need something that looks like this, so I can build a filter on this. I can say, well, I don't like the way it looks. Let me build this, make it in a table so I can look at the table. Let me go see something where something is over 0 or if something is 0. But I don't have to sit there and redo the query every time, because once I've put that query in or pulled the data down, it's sitting in memory. So I'm not tasking anything. I'm not having a problem. I've even possibly pulled something into memory and maybe disconnected from the network and started working something out, going, oh, this is what I want here, here, and here, which, PuppetDB is great, but offline queries you can't really do. The nice thing else you can do is you can do reports. You can do outgrids. You can do export to CSV. which is great when somebody wants to know something who just wants the data. They don't want to have to sit there and go to the actual PE console to see it. So after all this talking and blah, 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 let me get some examples going. First example is really, are we working? See if we can get that showing up on the screen. Just switch the, I may have to stop this one here. Oops. I'm breaking technology. I can fix it, so it's okay, so don't worry. No problems. Things are a little bit clunky here just because I'm running a Mac that's running a Windows 10 box. It's also running a Linux box. So it can be a little crazy. So really what I want to show you here is we just want to go look at the services endpoint. There's kind of two things I'm doing here. There's a invoke web request. By the way, can you guys see this okay? Do you need a little bit larger? Or? I have magical powers. Okay. So I just kind of want to show you guys how the invoke web request and invoke REST method are very similar. There have been times where I've tried to do something as invoke REST method, and it was a little wonky because it's not quite a REST service. Not really, this is not a Puppet thing. This is other things that are REST APIs. So not blaming them for anything. And so let me just go here. I'm going to select this, and we're going to run this. And so I've got my results here. So that's the results of the web request. And if I do results here, JSON. By the way, if your name is Jason and you have a lot of JSON documentation going on, people talking about developing JSON stuff, it really kind of messes with your head all day. You're like, what? Yeah, no. What? Yeah, no. So this just is showing you that basically we have the same data going through. And what I want to do here is I want to see what's the status and state of our classifier service. So I'm just clicking this, and you can see the data inside here of the objects. So once I've actually pulled this down and put it into memory, I'm not having to go through and say, hey, I don't have the right query. I have something else I want to do. I want to know if this part's here, this part's here. I don't have to make another call out there and make another authentication. So one thing I've done here, just to show you that's pretty nice, is imagine if someone thinks the classifier service is down. I can just sit there and say, hey, let's go look at the classifier service. Let's undo that thing here. So we'll look at the results dot classifier. Actually, I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to cheat a lot. Just don't tell anybody this. I can't type well, especially when people are watching. It's like kryptonite for me. But I can paste. Oh. Thank you. No wonder. By the way, this is why I script, because I just don't like typing things. Classifier service dot state. I've got it running right there. And so now it may not be running right at this second because I pulled this down just a few seconds ago, but I have a way of looking at this and going, oh, well, hey, what else do I have in this object? We got results, activity service. Oh, that's kind of cool. Got some more information there. And then what is the state of it? Hey, it's running also. And then you can just go through here and say, if something's really simple, let's just run this little script and, hey, the classifier is good, so we know it's okay. We can open up a message box. We can do other things with it. It's just, once you have this data, once you have this object, you can start doing anything else that PowerShell does with comparing things and understanding what's going on. Let me open up let's see where my next stuff is. Da, da, da. Da, 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 da. This is when things aren't working right. So, what about SSL? Now, one thing that's really kind of good and bad about PowerShell is it really wants to make sure that when you're talking to something, you're doing secure socket and I trust that CA. And that's really important. Not so important to me when I'm talking to the Puppet Master because it's internally in my network. I understand that. You can do some things to pull down the trusted root and put it on your local store, and that's probably the best thing to do. But we want to get things done really quickly. So really, this line here will tell PowerShell that I understand this thing is SSL. It's all cool, but just let it go. So let me go ahead and grab let me go through this real quick before I go into the demo. There are some things I had to learn when I looked at using API stuff with PowerShell. This will be on my GitHub stuff, by the way, but you can click on this link. But the guy here did a great blog post about how you deal with PowerShell arrays and hash tables, especially with JSON formatting, because what you see in examples almost everywhere is something that's going to be in a JSON itself. And PowerShell can send things to JSON, but it doesn't just have JSON. Just an example here of the arrays, like the differences. So you see what everyone's used to a JSON thing, everyone's used to a YAML, and of course PowerShell is using a .NET version of something slightly different, really the same thing. You don't have to do it that way, but that's just a nice way of going through and having the same data. So you can use some of the for each loops, you can do some of the data manipulation that's built into PowerShell and .NET. And this was actually, it's so silly and so simple, but this saved me so much time once I figured it out. The difference in notation between JSON and PowerShell, like saying, hey, if it's a hash, it's done this way. If it's an array, it's done this way. It's really just a small thing, but those small things that help you save time. So let me go ahead and switch over to my demo here. So one thing that I didn't talk about just yet was tokens in the role-based authentication services. So you can see, let me pull that out here. Here's a little thing saying that we're okay with the SSL certs we don't trust. Here's our console server. And right now what I want to do is I actually want to get a token from the role-based authentication. So I'm just going to slide through here. I'm just going to run this selection. Uh-oh. Bom, bom, bom. Did I miss something else here? Oh, yeah, that's what. So you can't trust me. You should put me on text-based all the time. This is why I'm using the keyboard. I can't trust my mouse. It's evil. It's possessed. The power of the keyboard compels you. No. So I can go through here and I see my token. I actually have a token sitting in the memory and ready to use. I can go through here and look at my results. This just shows the value in the token. And here I'm just making sure I'm putting that in there. Now what I want to do is, just to show you that I'm actually authenticated, I want to list the users I have. So what I'm doing here, as you can see, I've got the URI. So this is the endpoint. And by the way, if you've kind of noticed this thing, if you're a Puppet person, it's really good inside of PowerShell, also like it is in Puppet, to put the variable, like put a $sign and put the brackets in there. That way you're sure you're getting the text. You're getting just what you want. You're not getting something else showing up. That's one of those things that almost never has a problem until it does, and you're sitting there scratching your head going, but that should be there, and that should work. And so I'll do that, trust me. Then here we have the endpoint for users. I'm adding an authentication header, putting the token in there, and then I'm just going to say invoke REST method, the URI, which is this URI here, and then the header. And oh no, what happened here? This is what always ends up getting me. So let me just try this again. I think I missed something and it reset itself. But go to users, you can see now I have a users part in memory. So if I go to users here, I can even go select, I'll go here into the objects. I can go say, let's go get the display names. So I can do select. And this gives me all my names I have. And I can look at the different people I've created. And what's neat about, of course, PowerShell is I can go through and say, oh, let's look at this in a grid. So I can push this out to a grid view. And I can see the different people that are in here. I can say, oh, hey, this looks really neat. I understand this part of it. And that's really what I want to have. So let me go ahead and I'm going to send an email to somebody. I'm just going to clip this right here. And then I'm not going to try to open up Notepad just to be safe. I can just dump this in here, and I've got all the text I need. Although, of course, this wants to format to something else. But it's nice because you have those just-in-time kind of reports that you need. And one thing you've seen here is for this login, I've actually hard-coded admin and Puppet Labs. I'm just using the the learning VM. By the way, that's a great tool for people. If someone who doesn't understand Linux or anything else, have them get to that learning VM. It's been wonderful. But so say if you don't have that, but you want to make sure someone logs in. So what you can do is use the built-in Get credential that Microsoft has. And so we're going to actually see if I can do this the right way and shift it. Running partial things of the script, as you can see, can be dangerous to your health. Don't worry, I'm a trained professional. So right here, it's asking me for the authentication. So I'm going to say I'm admin and Puppet Labs. And I went ahead and I've now got a token. Now, if I had this thing open, I can still go in here and look at this and say, what's that password variable? So password, it shows me what the password is. Of course, the login is already stored in there. And the body is built out into JSON now. So it's just a way of giving someone a login prompt to do something they want to do. And if I want to do the rest of this, I can probably just, this is the same script for listing users, but I run this. This way you can go through and you give somebody who has access to role-based authentication access to do some of these things for the user endpoint. And they can go and put in their own thing. You don't have to hard code the credentials in for it. Oh, I was worried there. I was watching the time all jump down. So I was like, losing time. But so that's one of the examples. Let me just make sure that so the next one is here. Oh, so before I go to the next one, let me jump back into this. So one of the first examples I started working on was now that we have a way of forcing a Puppet run, I wanted to see what it looks like in documentation. So this is just kind of an example of a JSON body, not Jason's body, but JSON body of something that shows how you go ahead and make a call to the API. I just cut and pasted this right out of Puppet's documentation because that's what you're going to see a lot of. When you do these things, Puppet's great. They've taken great care of me. They've done wonderful things, but all their documentation is expecting you to be a Linux guy. Okay, not all of it, but a lot of it is expecting you to be a Linux guy. And I'm more of a Windows guy. Just don't hurt me. So switch this guy over here. Same thing in PowerShell looks kind of like this. We showed this a little bit earlier, but you can see we're just going through and we're saying, hey, let's create this object. Let's put the environment equal to production. The scope is equal to nodes equal to the example and example. So if you go back there, it's really a lot like just translating something very simple. And then what you can do once it's in PowerShell, you can go ahead and do a convert to JSON, which you've seen us kind of going through all day with examples. The convert to JSON just go ahead, takes that object and makes it a nice little pretty object. Get the thing part here, and let me just show you an example. Actually, we'll go through tokens here. These examples take a little bit of time to get going. And force a job run, get that example. Yeah, let's do that. By the way, I'm almost always a little bit kind of out there and space-headed, so this is not normal. This is not out of the ordinary for anything else. The guys who know me are like going, yeah, this is Jason. He's just being Jason, so. So the next thing we're going to do is we're actually going to force run on our master server here. Once again, the same thing we had before, which is we're going to say, hey, PowerShell, I understand you want to make sure that there's no SSL things, not trusted, but it's cool. He's cool. It's fine. No problems. We're looking at the console server and then the target server. These are actually the same server. You actually see the guy right here. And then I went ahead and just hardcoded the logins. The same thing here. So when you pull the stuff down from GitHub, if you want to use it, really this whole first part is something you could make, a submodule, or you could do something with an include. It's just copy and paste for me. And then here's the force run where I'm just going to say, hey, it's the production. Here's the scope. There's the target servers, and let's run it, and then we'll get the results for it. So I'm going to hopefully run the script here. And we're going to see right now the job is actually running, and it's running job 11. And I can go through here now through the PE console. I can see that job 11 is in progress. And it's nice because I can look and say, hey, that's cool. I know this is in progress, but what if I didn't have access to PE, the PE console? Well, I could go down here and say, let's just run this a little bit again. And it still says it's running. And it tells me when it's going and what's going on. Because I just went ahead and hit that REST API again, and I was looking for the header, which is for the job ID. And the job ID I've gotten up here. I can talk for hours about this kind of stuff, so I apologize. It's like this nerd level, look here, here, and here. And so let's go see if it's still running. We've got a slow machine here. Still running, but it's still let me know that's okay. If you go over here, you can still see that it's still in progress. This is like the boiling water. You're kind of watching. You're like going, okay, come on, come on, come on, come on. We'll let that stay on there for now. And I'll open up a new tab because it won't hurt anything. And let me open my next thing. So the next trick here is I'm going to look at the classifier because lots of people do things with the classifier. And the first thing you want to do with the classifier is really look to see what's out there. This is one thing. It's like you see here, these first, I guess 20 lines or 30 lines are really the same kind of thing. We're just building the auth header. And here I'm going to look at all my classifier groups. And then I can show you here that I'm doing it with the REST method and web requests. Then you can start filtering examples. So let's just try to grab this part, run it. So we're going through there and get all these parts here. If I want to see what's actually in my data, there's all the classes and data, and make this a little bit larger. And so, hey, I've seen all these things. Let me show you another little trick I love to do with PowerShell. Drives me a little crazy there. I see all these different items I have here, all these different pieces of data. Well, let's just do a select first one. And this is handy because I can just get that first object and I can say, hey, what's this look like? What's this, what's the important thing I'm looking for? So for here, I'm probably looking for names. So let's do select name. And then here's all my names I have. And I go, well, that's cool. That's all the built-in things I have. And that's really nice. But if I want to go through a little bit further, here's some examples, select name. But what if I want something that is where the environment is production and name is not PE, and then just show that. So I can run this line and say, hey, cool. All nodes, software inventory, and production environment don't have PE in them. So that's maybe something that matters to me. Or if I have something that for my company name in it or some other part, I can filter those things out and just say, well, give me these. And what's really kind of neat too, if you take this whole line, and by the way, I'm really bad about looking at this going, I could change this demo to do this part here and change the demo to do this thing. There's other like 10, 15 things I want to do. But what's neat is even this, I can select the name, or if I do here, I've got the full values. I can say, oh, great. So here's everything I have in the values for these things that match the criteria. I know that they're not environment things, they're not sitting that. I know what they're doing as far as the name, and I know what rules they have. Now we're going to jump back in our time machine here in just a little bit. Let's go check our status for the run. Is it still running? Well, you know what? I'll let it keep on running because if it's still running, that means it's not broken. Let me just double check. They give me an error there. Succeeded. Oh, PowerShell did. Yes, I understand. Let me make sure I'm running the right thing there. Well, yesterday when I was playing around with this, it said it's done. So you should have the same thing too. I never trust this because of the way the VM's working on limited RAM.
You have to run the entire stack.
Oh.
Password all over again.
Okay. Let's try this then. We will not have it do a job ID. Let's just change this over to don't tell anybody I did this, 11, because we know what that is. And we are not going to actually post this. And this really is working without a net. Dun, dun, dun. Unexpected error on send, force run. Tell you what. If this doesn't work, I'll just sit there and go, yeah, and smile. So I did 12. Let's go check the status of, there we go. So the state is finished. Ah. And that was for the job 11, because I hard-coded that up here. So it is possible to get that results back. And you just have to make sure you have to re-authenticate and make sure everything's happy with the token base. This is security happening, though. This is making things that, are not breaking anywhere. Let me go back over here. So once you've gotten the classifier groups and you can see these objects, of course, the next thing you're going to want to do is create a classifier group. And as you look here, I mean, these first couple lines are really kind of the same stuff. And if you go back in here, see the classifier endpoint, the groups, the group to add, and I just have 2 Humana class groups, whatever, and then I have a header for that, and then I just have a REST method. So hopefully we can run that, and no errors this time. Yay, something. We'll go to our classification, and you can see there's the group. And just to show you that there's nothing up my sleeve, I can remove this group. And I can just run this again. Refresh. And say, look, hey, there's the group. So the other little secret, and one of the neat things I saw in the presentation in 2015 is how you can take all your groups and kind of back them up this way. And I actually used this process when I moved from a three-way split to a monolithic, where I just took all of our classifier groups, put them down, said, okay, here's what I need, here's what I don't need, and just shoveled them right back up to a new PE box. So, not that my reports aren't important. PuppetDB is really important and everything, but I didn't want to keep 30 gigs of 2 weeks of reports. They weren't important to me. I wanted the role-based authentication. I wanted my classification, and that's really mostly what I wanted out of PuppetDB. And of course, the SSL stuff and everything else on the box, but those were easy to deal with. So that's one way of doing it, and I have a sin to confess to. Sometimes I have a hard time converting things over to PowerShell format. So we'll go up here to show you how this is in the group to add in PowerShell. This is a nice little thing here. It's a .NET object or PowerShell object, if you want to call it. But at first, I didn't really know how to do that. So what you can do in PowerShell is you can kind of just make this basically a variable inside this, where that's really just the JSON payload itself. You don't have the same kind of feature set, but that's really just the JSON. And you just say, well, okay, well, I'm having trouble understanding it, but I can see this example. I can choose this variable, group to add, go group to add and say, yeah, that looks like it's valid JSON, so that should be fine. And I can get here and run it. And then you can go and see the classification. Refresh there. That I've created the for group, whatever. I just put a number on top of that. But there will be times where you're trying to do something that's really complex and someone's giving you an example in JSON to use in curl or some other thing. You're like, you're messing around with the quotes and the brackets and everything else and it doesn't look right. Just give up sometimes. It's okay. Just make it work and be happy with it. And I guess really the last thing I'm going to show and then have some questions hopefully is I really do love what they've added with the software inventory. So let me just do a quick minimal thing here where I'm going out to the database server. Now I did cheat a little bit and I turned on clear text. You can do that internally if you want to. It's security maybe, whatever you want to say with it, but this is a quick way of making it simple. And this is even easier because I'm not authenticating. I'm going to run this out. And this is all the data that's actually in the package inventory. Now, I've only got one box, so I've got all these things inside of here, but what if I just want to see the things that have JSON in it? I can run this part, and it's already filtered that out and say, oh, cool, those are all the things that I have with JSON in it. And let's go look in the out, exit out grid view again. You can do this and select here. And boom. And what's neat about that is you can give the script to a manager and they can say, oh, hey, what's going on? I want to know everything that you have for that has JSON on these servers. Well, great, let me build this part out for you. We'll run this script. Yeah. And it gives them this nice little GUI they can do stuff with. And from this GUI, they can select, copy, paste, and do other things. But that's most of the stuff. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything because I like to talk a lot and I'm tough about that, or good or bad. I guess any questions anybody has, any problems or anything else? Yes.
So one of the questions I work with PowerShell and Puppet API. In fact, I wrote a script where we migrate or we built environments. So what I did was I wrote a script where you can just pass the parameter for Puppet server. That's your source, and then you have a target server, and it would copy over all the classifications and everything. So at that time when I wrote, the problem was that the rules that are there would not get converted. They would actually create a problem because of the conversion from JSON, the way PowerShell works. So how do you deal with that? Because, does that work with the grouping that you mentioned? Because I found a way that you have to actually convert that to character set UTF-8. That kind of worked for me, but not fully yet. I haven't actually gone deep into to investigate, but have you encountered that problem?
I cheated a little bit with it when I did the migration, so I had to do some of those special characters. But one thing I haven't tried that may work is instead of converting everything over, just keeping it as just standard text instead of like the @ sign and everything else like the last part. I don't know if it would allow you to do that or just keep it as like a text grouping.
The only thing so far that has worked for me the only thing that worked for me was to convert when you're converting to JSON, just use character set UTF-8.
Yeah.
And that kind of have worked for me. I think I had some issue that probably was mine that I didn't really look into, but so far that's the only thing that has worked for me. So when you're sending the payload, convert that to character set UTF-8.
That's a great thing to look at. I'm going to go home now and play with that. Actually, I'm going to be on the plane tomorrow going, how does that work? 'Cause that sounds pretty cool.
I was actually looking at the script. I just don't have it saved anymore because when we build, I just wrote the script quickly and just we were done with it because we're not doing it every day.
Yeah.
And I haven't put it on GitHub yet, so I don't remember exactly what else I did, but mainly it was UTF-8, just changing it to character set UTF-8 when you're converting, or when you're sending the payload.
I'll try to take a look at that, and if I can find that, I'll just dump it right here in the presentation on the GitHub there, and maybe put something in the Puppet users group or the Windows users group on Slack. I don't know if you're in that or not. That's a great resource. I know this, this isn't quite Windows, but it's a lot easier to talk to people about PowerShell in the Windows group. So thanks.
So one of the API endpoints that we were trying to hit from PowerShell is the certificate status endpoint. But that's not a token-based authentication. I was wondering if you had worked on converting the Puppet client certs. Glenn had a script. I was just wondering if you'd seen it, to convert the Puppet client certs to PKCS12 or whatever.
Yeah, I've got
not cheating and using OpenSSL.
Oh, no, I'm using OpenSSL.
Yeah, that's what I did.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, I've got something for that, but what I'm doing is I'm cheating and using OpenSSL. So, yeah, and that's the one I found on it. So I haven't used that yet with tokens. I don't know. I'm assuming it's probably planned to do something with tokens or change, but I don't know yet. I haven't used it that much. Oh, one other thing I was going to show you too, by the way, is I've actually got PowerShell installed on my Mac here. So this is the first example. And what's kind of nice about this is you can just go through and what you do in Windows, you can also have a problem in Mac. Oh, message box. I'm sorry, I don't have a way of doing message boxes. Oh, sorry. Review. So zoom in. Oh, equals. But just to show you, all the stuff that you can do here, we could do in PowerShell in Windows. You can also do this in Linux or Mac and everything else, except for the message box, which I put in there last night to show off. You can't do the message box calls, but it's all a lot of the same things. It works the same way. Same commands and everything else. But I wish I had a better answer to that, except for the OpenSSL, but the OpenSSL is, that's exactly what I did, because I put a note in there for moving it over and then putting something in trusted. But
So I copied it down to save things.
oh,
We were trying to check it from a server that sorry. So yeah, that's what I did. I copied it down to my computer and used Sigwin, but we were trying to check it from the server that we were doing it on. Use the client cert from Puppet, not
Right.
have to create yet another cert.
right. Yeah, I think we just got a little bit messy with our certs there.
So I'm afraid we're just about out of time. Maybe just one more quick question, and then perhaps a
Yeah.
little after session conversation. Okay.
And don't worry, I'll talk to anybody about technology stuff or Overwatch stuff or the Star Wars Destiny card game stuff or just all kinds of things. So if you don't have any kind of nerd things, theories about good Fantastic Four movie ideas, the possible X-Men things, Batman, just come see me. It's all good.